afternoon to everybody. I would like first to thank a lot the organizer for their invitation today to participate to this webinar. And I would like to say sorry for my English. I hope you can understand. In recent years, the large number of studies of core plastic repertoire and different iconographic types has significantly advanced the discussion of the interpretation of terracotta figurines, which can no longer be considered as offering without any particular meaning. On the contrary, figurines occupy the same position in archaeological assemblages as other categories of artifacts, with which they form a coherent system that can convey important information on religious and social practices. However, it is not always easy to understand the meaning of the figurines, whatever the context in which they were found, graves or sanctuary, and even if the name of the worshipped goddess is already known. This difficulty is due to the nature of the images conveyed by these figurines and the way in which they were created. Indeed, these images are not simply faithful illustrations of reality, but are mentally elaborated constructions, artificial montages of elements previously selected, and then combined to form a coherent and meaningful discourse. This discourse reveals a number of values that are those that society at a given moment has chosen to emphasize. Imagines are first a form of language whose codes and conventions must be known in order to understand them. We can add to this first difficulty the use of visual plays in the form of metaphors or analogies, which make reading and understanding of certain images even more complex. These images are much rarer in choroplastic repertoire, and when they are present, it is often in a very small number of pieces, which are thus generally disregarded and placed at the end of catalogues without in-depth commentary. It is these images that I would like to highlight today by discussing the case of some of them from the votive deposit of Kirrha, brought to light in 1936 by the French School of Athens in front of a temple identified with that of the Apollinian triad, the one prior to that seen by Pausanias. I would like today to try to propose a semiotic analysis in the aim to analyze the semantic values that they convey, and that could allow us to understand the meaning of such dedications in the specific context in Kirrha. The first iconographic type shows a woman standing with a round belly with smooth skin that she reveals by pulling up her tunic. Framed by long hair, the face shows a wide smile that makes the cheeks swell, giving it an almost strange appearance. One could think of a mask placed on the faces as on the figurines of comic actors, some of which have a padded belly. Our figurine, however, by its general appearance, the position of the clothing, and its particular gesture, finds no parallel in the known repertoire of well-identified types of these actors. The Kirrha's figurines have nothing to do either with the grotesque types of old women with caricatured faces, whose physiognomy with a large distended belly and with a fold is very different. So there is no reason not to consider our type as that of young pregnant woman. Her jovial face should not surprise us. Similar faces, in fact, are found on other female types related to motherhood, such as this woman crouching with a newborn and with a face illuminated by a wide smile. The statuette comes from a grave of the necropolis of Lipari, identified as that of a girl, and dating from the end of the 5th century. Two other statuettes were part of the funerary furniture, an articulated Corinthian type figurine and a very damaged seated woman. These three These three statuettes work together and create meaning by evoking three stages in the girl's socialization process. Often considered as a doll that the little girl offers to a choreographic divinity at the time of puberty and marriage, the articulated figurines, because of their movable limbs and the presence sometimes of musical instruments, can also refer to the choral group of young girls, which is a well-known place of education where these protogamu girls go at the same age and live at the time of the wedding. The next step could be symbolized by the type of woman enthroned in which one could see an image of the girl in a new status as a married woman. But the event that changed radically a woman's life is the birth of a first healthy child, which allows the woman to experience the locus, the final stage of her integration. The figurine of a smiling woman holding a newborn could thus refer to this fundamental moment in the life of women. The choroplastic kit left in this tomb would be perfectly suitable for a girl who died before she could obtain the full status of Guinea. The little dead girl takes to her grave all that her premature death did not allow her to live, to testify certainly of her unfulfilled fate. In Kirrha, the repertoire does not include women in childbirth, but the two women with large bellies are direct allusions to the role of the mother that society and the family expect of their daughters after marriage. Their particular gesture, which seems inappropriate in this situation of raising their garment to show their belly and pubis, may surprise the spectator, but it is a well-known gesture similar to that of the anasirma performed by Bobo, a character also linked to maternity. By rolling up her garments and revealing her genitals, Bobo makes Demeter laugh. The gesture is then liberator because it makes go away the sadness and the pain far from the goddess. It can also be protective because the view of the naked pubis can cause disgust and fear. The gesture of our pregnant woman can thus have a double purpose: to focus the attention on this essential feminine zone, to show its good health, but also to avoid the evil eye and to scare away the danger which threatens the child and the future mother during this high-risk period. If the figurine of pregnant woman emphasizes in an obvious way the state of pregnancy, other objects refer in the form of pictorial metaphors to human fecundity, certain fundamental but hidden parts of the female body, and to the maternity. This is the case for the fig, of which 5 examples have been identified in the Kirrha's deposit, making it a rather exceptional set in Greece. These are ripe figs at different stages of ripeness. 2 of them are completely closed, and 3 others are open as the ostiole, allowing the pulp to be seen. On 2 specimens, the pulps appear fibrous and grainy, while on the last exemplar, the interior is smooth. This aspect could also make one think of a bread whose crust would have cracked during cooking. But the comparison of the images with the real fruits rather points towards an identification as a fig. The fig is a fruit containing a multitude of small seeds and is therefore a clear symbol of fertility and prosperity. It is especially closely associated with the body of girls whose belly, like the fig, contains flowers that blossom and become fruits. As a fig, the female womb will open when the body becomes mature, with the coming of the first menstruation that announces that for the girl, the time of marriage and motherhood is approaching. The link between young women and figs is even closer if, through a visual play, we overlay the opened fig on the female vulva, with which the fruit is compared, for example, in Aristophanes. To pick up the fig has the same meaning as to pick up the flower and alludes to the moment when the young girls who have arrived at the Hebe the flower of age, must be married, deflowered, and become a mother. The female genitalia then appear as a door, an entrance that must be opened, and a belly that contains a reproductive womb as a container for the future fruits of marriage. Hence, a series of natural and vegetal metaphors that suggest the fertility and maternity of women without having to exhibit the female organs in a shocking way. Thus, if we look closely, we realize that the image of the cracked fig, whose opening invites us to look inside, is also comparable to the human placenta, which is also made up of an envelope containing the nutriments that are indispensable for the development of the fetus, just as the fig contains the flower that it makes ripen and transform into fruits. Another singular object in the Kirrha's deposit could also evoke by its particular shape and decoration the idea of fecundity and gestation. The object in question is circular in shape, decorated with a serpentine strip of clay that goes around the upper surface, drawing waves whose loops touch a large round knob in the center. In top view, this line in relief seems to draw a rosette with 8 petals. The shape, the central knob, and the decoration can make one think of an upturned monomphalos fial, but the protruding omphalos is here placed in the reverse direction. More relevant comparisons allow us to propose another interpretation. The model of Kirrha indeed looks very much like the round and ribbed cake with an omphalos that appear, for example, on reliefs of heroic banquets. These cakes are often called popana omphalota and identified with the placunta described by Athenaeus and the placenta whose recipe is described by Cato. It is a cake made of layers of honey and goat cheese wrapped in thin sheets of dough, the last one being tightened and forming a knot at the top. In the choroplastic repertoire, it can be recognized on 2 small models, certainly from Boeotian graves, showing a woman putting it in or taking it out of an oven. A third model comes from a grave of the necropolis of Myroni in Thasos, studied by Irene Papaikonomou, where the dead could be a girl of about 10 years. On these 3 figurines, the cake is shaped like a very large bundle. Because of its name, shape, and consistency, the Placus cake has already been compared to the human placenta. It could evoke, in a metaphorical way, the face of the fetal side. The thin sheets, sometimes described as veil in the text, allude to the membrane, the amnion, and the chorion that cover the placenta. Chorion is also the Greek term for placenta. Kirrha's model leaves a different feeling, especially because of the presence of a serpentine cord instead of deep grooves, but isn't this also a visual play to allude to the umbilical cord on the placenta, just as the top button refers by formal analogy to the knot of the umbilical cord and the newborn's navel? That the bread cake and the terracotta models that reproduce it in miniature could translate the idea of the human placenta find an explanation in the fact that the development of the fetus is compared to the baking bread in an oven, which thus becomes a metaphor for the womb. But the woman has a privileged relationship with the preparing and cooking of food. It is a woman, in fact, who, within the home, prepares the meals by transforming, by grinding, kneading, and by cooking the products such as the cereals, just as she herself receives seeds in her body, which she makes grow and become ripe thanks to the heat of her womb. As a fig, the breed models allow to evoke in an indirect way the destiny of the Greek girls who were born to shape children and to cook them in their bodies. It seems to me that it is exactly this fate that is summarized in the Tajan model through the various cakes and breads and the mortar accompanying the little girl, and to which the figs and our placus cake in the sanctuary of Kirrha also refer. The semiotic analysis of all these images revealed a specific semantic field linked to fertility, pregnancy, and childbirth, three main concerns of women and more widely of Greek cities. Giving birth to a healthy child and surviving childbirth, especially to first birth, in fact, ends the girl's socialization process by making her a member of the group of accomplished women, the gune, and allowing her to access a socially valued status. Girls were thus prepared from an early age from this function, certainly at home through contact with other women, but also perhaps through rituals, collective or not, performed in the sanctuaries at important stages, such as the time of menarche, on approach to the wedding, and during the first pregnancy. During all this transitional period, the girl is in the dangerous in-between where the protection of the divinities is wished to successful cross this passage. But all the women, still young and fertile, need this kind of assistance. These few objects also testify to an important aspect of the personality of the divinity that the generic types, like standing woman, seated woman, and protome, which are very numerous number in Kirrha, do not highlight. The divinity of Kirrha was not only asked to promote and protect the fertility of women in general, a function common to female divinities, to many female divinities, sorry. This object, in their interpretation is valid, show also that the goddess was active in the most critical moments for women, during pregnancy and childbirth, for which the help of the divinity was absolutely necessary. We do not know the name of the divinity worshipped in Kirrha. The link suggested by the excavators with the sanctuary of the Apollonian triad seen by Pausanias is not confirmed by epigraphic documents. This identification is thus only on hypothesis among others. However, objects suggesting the female womb and motherhood have quite a place among the offerings brought to a sanctuary where deities such as Leto and her daughter Artemis would be venerated. The first is well known for her role as a mother and the relationship she has with her children, but also for the particularly difficult births she experienced. Artemis, who often bears the name of Lysizonos, Lokia, or Elaithia, is intimately linked to the physiological maturation of young girls, to menstruation and childbirth, which she can make fatal for the mother and the child by shooting her murderous arrows. This sphere of activity is also reflected in two object attributes found in the hands of about 20 Corinthian korai types traditionally identified with images of Artemis in her role as hunter and protector of animals. On the one hand, the little deer, which as a wild animal is completely comparable to the girl's protogamou, that it is necessary to socialize, And on the other hand, the bow, which can also be seen as a symbol of the deep pain which perforates, such as the sharp arrows, the body of the woman in childbirth, and in particular of the primiparous. I don't know if these statuettes are really images of Artemis, and I don't know if it is a goddess who is worshipped at Kirrha sanctuary. But the faces of the choroplastic repertoire with some specific types is exactly what one would expect in a sanctuary of this goddess. Thank you very much.